It was at the beach yesterday.
Go ahead
Oh,
and start.
so cute.
Yeah, he loves the big key.
Okay.
You know, as long as they love it.
Yeah. Laura, how you doing?
Fine, thanks.
I remember going to Boys Market like at 11 o'clock, pick up a baby.
Yeah. Yeah, we got plenty of big
Uh-huh.
kids.
I'm so glad my grandkids didn't like think as much.
So, Teresa, I'm sorry. I know you said,
So
okay, we're on Zoom too, right?
Yes, we haven't started the meeting yet.
Hi, everybody, that we haven't started the meeting. So,
Yeah.
you've set
So,
up,
yeah, just go to the folders.
well, first I'm gonna go to Lex.
Okay.
Grayson.
Lovely name.
Yeah, because well, my grandpa was Gary, my dad's Gary, and Jeff was a G, so we're keeping the G's going.
G's
Sounds
going.
good.
I think I was the only one my wife liked. Grayson.
He needs to be an
And
education.
then in May. No, sorry.
Okay, I'm gonna find it, it's okay. I'm taking a deep breath.
Maybe I just put it in there. I just set it up, yeah, so just go there, Laura, just
Oh,
for
you
the
put
time
it in
being.
May 2020?
Yeah, but
It
then,
doesn't really matter.
yeah, there's May.
That's fine. And paste.
Your agenda's-
And I had brought, did I bring? I did. Some printed copies of the agenda and also some printed copies of the draft CISs.
Okay.
So I'm gonna keep, you're gonna have to share. You pass that down. Take it there.
Hang on.
It's just the,
Bring a cheese agenda here.
I'll share. Okay, watch your board. Okay. And if I went to Zoom, I'm gonna see that we have Zoom, right?
Yeah, Zoom is on the bottom, we've already started the
I
meeting.
know. Yeah, yeah. A little bit different than when you were.
Yeah,
President.
I was just talking to my wife about it, because I was like, I remember when I was on, it's like YouTube will get it have it uploaded,
No,
and now
no,
you just, yeah. live
right,
stream,
well,
yeah.
it's, right, but the whole system. Hi, David, hi, Donna. So, since we're gonna start the official meeting in a moment, but we can talk to each other when we talk, but we should remember to also look at the screen. And I have to remind myself of that all the time, because my habit is to look at the computer. But our other people are there, not here, even though here it is. And, and it's 7:04, so I'm going to officially call this meeting to order. My name is Laura Myers, and I am the co-chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee. I am on the board of UNNC, I'm its vice president, and I live in Angeles Vista. I'm going to post the agenda so everyone can see it. And, excuse me. So can I hear from anybody on Zoom as to whether or not you can see this?
Oh, good.
So, call to order, review of UNNC's standing rules for committee stakeholder voting participation. So anyone, UNNC appoints its chairs of committees, but does not appoint members of committees. So anyone who is a valid stakeholder may participate fully in the meeting. In other words, make motions. Everyone can participate in the meeting and discuss, but any stakeholder may also make motions and vote. So what is a stakeholder? It's someone who lives, works, owns property, has a kid in school, attends a church, and is otherwise a participant in a community interest organization that organization must be a nonprofit with a brick and mortar address within the boundaries of United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council. So any of those are considered stakeholders. So what we do at this time is go around the room and each person introduces themselves and states whether or not they are a stakeholder and if they essentially intend to vote. That doesn't mean you have to vote, but intend to vote. So we'll start with Cheryl.
Cheryl Johnson. I guess I am a stakeholder.
You live in Jefferson Park.
And I intend to vote.
Rosie Brown, live in Jefferson Park. I intend to vote.
Jeffrey Bowen, live in Jefferson Park and intend to vote.
Teresa Masonette, I'm on the board of the UNNC. I represent the avenues and I will vote.
Hi, I'm Gary Benjamin. I'm here representing one of the projects on the agenda.
Probably are not a stakeholder, probably don't intend to vote.
Don't intend to vote, yeah.
Yes, okay, to the Zoom room, Donna.
Donna Jones, West Adams Avenues. I am a stakeholder and I intend to vote.
And David Safford.
David Saffer, I'm a member of Jefferson Park, and I am a stakeholder, and I intend to vote.
Okay,
I think Dolores is,
I saw Dolores and now I don't see Dolores, whoops. Oh,
Hi,
there she is.
Dolores Spears, Jefferson Park resident, and I'm a stakeholder and I intend to vote.
Okay. And then we're going to review the agenda. So the next item after this item is general public comments that will be on items not on the agenda. And then we have item 3 is finalize 2 different recommendations for community impact statements to take to the board regarding 2 different ED1 motions. So ED1 is the mayor's executive directive that streamlines 100% affordable housing. And there are, as you can see on the agenda, there are 2 motions on our table because there's 2 motions on the city council table, one related to RSO housing and the ED1, and the other related to historic preservation and the ED1. And then the next item is an initial review, and I definitely want to say again, it's an initial review of the proposed project at 2800 West Jefferson Boulevard. And we do have a representative of the applicant here with us tonight, so the agenda said they may not be present. But either way, it's still a discussion item, not an action item.
and Laura, if I could make an amendment, since we have so many people here from Jefferson Park, I'm sure they're here about,
John's not arriving until after 7:30.
oh, okay.
So sorry, yes. So Teresa was about to say, can we do Jefferson
yes.
first? But since my co-chair, who's also an affordable housing architect, is arriving after 7:30, I think we need to at least try and get his thoughts.
Okay, and then we have 2 new participants.
Okay, Steve L. So what initials KT and Steve L, what you missed at the beginning was we all introduced ourselves and stated whether or not we are stakeholders and also intention as to whether or not you want to vote. So essentially for United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council, members of the community who may participate fully in our standing committees, we only appoint the chairs and may make motions and may vote as long as they are officially stakeholders. Someone who lives, works, has a kid in school, attends church, owns property, or participates in a community interest organization whose addresses within brick and mortar addresses within our boundaries, and that must be a nonprofit. So we need you, KT and Steve, to introduce yourselves, say hi, and tell us if you are a stakeholder.
Hello, I'm Kevin Tsai. I'm the architect for 2800 Jefferson.
Okay. And so no, unless maybe you are a stakeholder, but I think your office is in Nandisi, the other neighborhood council to our east. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm currently still in the office, 1439 West Jefferson, a few
Okay,
blocks away.
right. And Steve.
Steve is actually the proud owner of the property 2800 Jefferson.
Stakeholder. Okay, so you may have just heard us say that we're gonna take the agenda in the order we have it. But
Okay.
I think the CISs are pretty quick anyway.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop the share and ask for if there are any general public comments on any item not on this agenda. Yes, Teresa.
I would just like to remind everybody that Saturday, June the 1st, at Leslie Sharp Park on Jefferson Boulevard, the Neighborhood Council is having a community resource fair, and we invite everybody to come out and have free tacos, and we have about 17 different city and county departments providing relevant information to the community.
Okay. Any other general public comments on any? Okay.
Just want to remind everyone to still continue to use the 311 app, My LA 311, to report illegal dumping and graffiti, because, you know, it starts to get a little bad. You don't even have to be yours. It could be someone else's also that you can report.
Especially the dumping.
Yeah, especially the dumping.
Especially the dumping, yes. So this is also sort of general public comment, although it's coming from the co-chair. Thank you for attending a special meeting. The reason we're doing a special meeting is that UNNC also, on the first Wednesday of each month, and this has been going on for some months now, is having essentially disaster preparedness and CERT training. So we thought it was so important to not have a conflict of schedule that we've been only meeting this committee once a month in the middle of each month. Usually we meet twice a month, first and third Wednesdays. And all of a sudden, we just have too much work to do and too many deadlines. So that's why we scheduled this meeting. And unfortunately, I at least will be missing the next CERT training because we're gonna have a June 5th meeting as well, because we have so many items on our agenda. We will have a mid-June meeting per normal, and then we have to cancel once again the first Wednesday in July, because I'm guessing most of you are not gonna come to a meeting the night before 4th of July. Thursday, so that meeting is canceled. So thank you for coming on an odd night. All right, so the next item on our agenda, I'm gonna go pull back up the actual agenda so we can look at it, and then I'm gonna pull up another document. And I apologize, I didn't get the draft CISs up into the agenda packet until probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes ago. So you probably haven't seen them. But what we're going to be discussing next, again, is the Mayor's Executive Directive 181, which has been used already to permit more than 14,000, not necessarily build them yet, but permit more than 14,000 new units of affordable housing, taking advantage of streamlining provisions, and they basically allow developers to avoid many of the city's discretionary review processes. The city council offices are getting a lot of feedback from their constituents, asking them to change the 81, to add, quite a few restrictions. And there's a ordinance wending its way through city council that would, both make 81 part of the law, but also restricts some of these non-restrictions. In the meantime, there are two motions that are asking for what's called interim control ordinances, so something that would take effect right away, in order to do some further protections while waiting for the bigger thing to happen. So we have two on our agenda. One is a proposal by Council Member Eunice Hernandez, creating an actual discretionary approval process for sites that currently have RSO, or rent stabilized apartments, or which have apartments that are not currently occupied but were vacated via the Ellis Act. And that's complicated, but basically trying to protect the tenants or the former tenants in sites that were affordable. provided affordable housing. So we had a robust conversation 2 weeks ago, well, not even 2 weeks ago, May 15th, and developed bullet points that I've converted to a draft proposed CIS for the motion and some of the discussion. And then the second one is similarly a citywide interim control ordinance. This one would restore the protections, the review processes, essentially for any proposed ED1 project in HPOZ, in an HPOZ. We had another robust discussion, and essentially what we decided is that we supported, but that there's other kinds of designated historic districts that seem to have fallen off the radar in this motion. So, and of course, we use the word designated, and I just realized, however, when I put the draft, I forgot to add the word designated. So I will, because that was part of our motion. So I'm gonna stop this share, say hello to Steve Peckman, and I'm going to now, give me a moment. Hi, Steve, how are you? Thank you for coming, because I think you decided to prioritize this meeting.
Other meeting, yes.
Over the other meeting, yes, thank you. And I'm gonna open this document. And again, for those who are new, I'm sorry, I have to pick through every single.
Let me admit this person.
I have to pick through things in order to find the open documents. All right, I did just open the
It's right.
document. No, okay, was that all open again?
It's on the bottom, Laura. Oh, are there 2 pages there?
No,
Oh,
even though I
okay.
just double clicked it. So I'm gonna close that and try it again. Oh, because I'm in the wrong place. I'll just go to my Lexer. Sorry, everybody. Okay. I'm going to share this screen. You already know I'm going to do an edit on one of them. I don't know, Teresa, what's going on?
I just know someone's waiting, so let's admit this person, Laura. Let me admit that person. And
Now I'm going to try this one.
okay.
There it is. Sorry, here we are, finally. Okay. So, can you all see the screen? Kind of. Should I make it bigger?
No, not to me.
I was gonna move that out of the way, you know, just.
Okay, please do. But Teresa and I both have power and control, apparently.
We're not.
Or not. Okay, we're trying to squeeze you guys out of the way, trying to make this bigger by just a little. Okay. For those on Zoom, are you able to read this draft community impact statement? Just
Yeah.
anyone? Okay. So this is related to the Eunice's Hernandez motion. And again, it's based on the conversation and then the motion that we did on the 15th of May. So what we do is, as a committee, is, and we can tweak this, we recommend it to the governing board, and then they can tweak it to their heart's desire. But what we decided was, everyone knows, Los Angeles has a housing crisis, and it's a crisis facing not only those who are currently unhoused, but also Angelenos who are at risk of losing their housing. So UNNC has a long record of supporting affordable housing developments and also policy initiatives. And that is why UNNC supports Council Member Hernandez's motion, which would create a new discretionary approval process for developments on sites currently improved with rent stabilized apartments, or which were vacated via the Ellis Act within the past 5 years. This interim control ordinance would incorporate robust tenant protections and anti-displacement measures into the mayor's emergency directive, ED1. But we also urge the city council to make this policy apply citywide, which I'll explain in a minute. Too often, the new development proposals under ED1 include the demolition of naturally occurring affordable units, which may have actually been more affordable than the proposed replacement units. UNNC does not believe it is in the best interest of the city to destroy existing affordable units, and especially it's important not to streamline that process, eliminating the checks and balances that come with discretionary review. So again, I'm going to emphasize, this is not just Laura writing. We actually had a written transcript of our conversation 2 weeks ago. So these were what I pulled. And the motion, Hernandez's motion, is limited to Council District 1. And what we're recommending is that it be citywide. It's also limited to the demolition of 5 units or more. We did discuss whether we wanted to suggest that it applied to duplex, triplex, fourplex, and even single-family homes that are rented. And we, at committee 2 weeks ago, we decided no, that we were not recommending that. So this is reflecting what we voted on 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to open this up for discussion.
I think I'd like to make a motion that we submit this to the governing board for approval to send a CIS to council file 240457. Is there a second?
Yeah, does anybody
Yes,
second?
I
Teresa?
second that. I second Teresa's motion.
Thank you, Steve. Now we can open.
Now we can open it up for discussion. So, sure.
I would like to know why there were units that were excluded from this.
Okay. Why were units, why did we stick
Properties,
to, why did we just stay with the motion at city
At
council
5.
at 5? I don't remember. I just reread the notes. Does anyone who was there remember why we decided it was okay to stay with that?
Because I think a duplex and a fourplex falls under
Well,
certain
they're
provisions and.
Well, they fall under different lending rules, but they still fall under the housing department. So I don't, no, I was surprised to read what we said, but that's what we said.
Yeah, I think our main objection, not objection, to her motion was that it be citywide. So she had 5 units or greater, so we didn't want to contradict that. We just want to make sure that it's it applies citywide.
Steve, Steve. But you're muted.
So I agree with Teresa's memory on this, is that we felt that it would be extremely difficult to change the content of the motion regarding number of units rather than make what she's doing citywide. It would protect more people that way. The effort required to get her to change the motion was not seen as viable at this point. Right, so the issue was being inclusive across the city rather than just her district, rather than having her change the entire motion.
Right, because the other thing we didn't change, we had a long discussion about the difference between RSO and non-RSO, and we also decided not to suggest changing that either. So I think the idea was that we think there's so much support for this motion that it would be difficult to create change. Now, that isn't necessarily a good reason not to suggest change. So
well, that was the
and
reason that we
Right.
landed on in the last meeting, was that agreeing with her motion in concept, which is that we need to protect these already affordable units and not reopening a can of worms regarding the actual deep dive into it, whether it should be single units or duplex or triplex or quadplex, would be a much more difficult lift at this point of the motion being entertained by council. And we've also felt that the rest of the council would be more positively disposed to approving a citywide modification to what's now only a district-specific modification.
Okay. So, and I think our charge tonight is, well, I guess it could be anything, but we recommend to the board and they can then change it too, but.
Or you could modify the amendment. I mean, there's some.
I feel it should be modified because there are people at this point that will suffer because of, not just because of what you're saying, but, you know, to take a single family dwelling, to take a duplex and end up making it 10 units in the middle of a small community is quite big, especially when it's going to be 3 stories tall in the middle of all the 1-story
But
houses.
this topic is to prevent displacement. I mean, this goal of this particular motion is to prevent displacement.
Right. That was her original motion.
Well, and I understand that, and I also answer that with the affordable housing in the units that are being built are very small. So right now, there's one across from me that's $3,800 a month. It was built with the intention of being affordable, but it is not. So when you look at something like that, you're already cynical because you're saying, okay, it's supposed to be this, but it never quite got there. And there's no person or persons to follow up to make sure it's doing what it's supposed to do. So therefore, we just have a bunch of brand new white buildings.
So maybe the compromise here is,
Let me just, Cheryl, not to hurt your feelings, but I made the motion and Steve seconded, so we have a motion on the floor. You can ask me if I want to take a friendly amendment, and then I'm gonna say no, because I feel this is a solid CIS that we can get the board to support, because all we're asking is for her to take this and make it citywide. So if I guess the procedural method here is for you to ask me to make a friendly amendment, and then I will respond to that. And then we have to take a vote on this motion, right?
Right.
Okay.
okay, I don't even remember if we have to take a vote on the amendment, but in any case, but you're right, that's the procedure.
Right. So unless.
No, all I was going to say is one can do a soft added sentence in because it's a community impact statement, a soft added sentence at the end that says, we would also ask you to consider including others, the smaller RSO units or something like that. It's just a softer approach.
Okay, and then Steve, how do you feel about that added sentence?
So I have concerns about that. One is we discussed this really for almost an hour at the last meeting.
And I think you were here, Cheryl.
And I think that and we did consider this issue at length. Now, what I would suggest, because I think this is an important issue, I'm not in disagreement with the concern about losing any affordable units. I think you're absolutely right. But I think that's a different discussion. And what I would recommend is that we charge the chair of the committee to talk to Councilperson Hernandez's representatives to find out why they were excluded and see what we could do then on the back end to get them wrapped in rather than in this CIS.
Right, I'm willing to do that. Okay. I mean,
that's my suggestion, because I think this is an important point. It's not only an important point, we spent so much time talking about it last time. That is a demonstration of how important it is. And I don't want it to be ignored because I agreed with it last time, but I think it's not appropriate for this motion and this CIS. It's something separate. So let's do it separately. We can still achieve the goal, I think, but it's just going to be 2 parts to that process.
Sure, and I think it's very doable for me. I don't have a relationship with CD1, but I know someone who does, and I think it's a very doable thing.
Well, it's a good opportunity to create that relationship.
Sure.
The only thing I would ask of the committee is that you don't wait so long that it gets shoved into a corner and forgotten.
Can we put it on the June not the June 5th, because I know we have a lot of things for that, but the middle of
Well,
June.
I don't know that if I find out that the answer is, oh, you didn't even think about it, that's a good idea. It could just be
Yeah.
part of the presentation at the governing board.
So since
And
the chair has agreed to do it, I agree that haste is necessary.
Yeah,
But all
Well,
this
then
would require is a report back by the chair
Sure.
to the committee as to the substance of that conversation.
Right.
And what are the possible next steps.
right. And I want to say, I'm going to the Housing Summit event tomorrow. So for all I know, they'll be there
Okay.
because they really should be there, frankly.
Okay.
It's a big
So-
deal.
So I think what we have is a motion and a second on the floor.
Correct.
We have also a charge to the chair to do some follow-up with CD1, whatever they are.
The only thing we
And,
don't have is a chair running the meeting, apparently.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a
Yeah.
faux chair running the meeting.
She's not
And,
faux. I take objection to that. She's a co-chair. She's not
Okay.
faux. Actually, she's
So-
getting ready to call for the vote right now, Steve.
Well, I was going to call for the vote.
You go ahead, call for the vote.
I just did.
Okay, fine. Let us vote. And we're not doing a roll call. What I'm gonna ask, for those who are on Zoom, if you are voting, please raise your virtual hand or your real hand. And here in the room, we're just gonna raise our hands. All in favor
To accept this.
to
Yes.
accept it just as it's drafted.
And I think we have some,
Oh, yeah, we have some addition, we have some additional, Catherine.
she's a community member and I
And
think
Sandra has
Sandra's.
joined too.
Yeah.
So we know that Sandra, and I don't know who is Carla your wife? So she is a bona fide stakeholder. So
Okay.
everyone who's come into the room, Sandra, Carla, and Catherine are all eligible to vote on this. So let's do that again. Raise your hand if you're planning to vote in favor.
Okay.
Okay. And raise your hand if you're planning to vote against it. Lower your hands if you're on Zoom and voted the other way. Okay, nobody's voting no. So the motion passes. So I'm gonna now share the second one. It's the same document. Might go faster. No, this is the second community impact proposed, oh, look at, lovely, too many fonts. Second proposed,
Make it a little larger.
yes, community impact statement, let's see. And we already know, I forgot to use, so you're entering.
Yeah.
Okay, forgot to use the word designated to include various types of designated. You see, I made a change. So for those who joined later, it was something I forgot. So this is council, Steve, I know you have your hand raised, but I'm gonna read the whole thing fast. Los Angeles has adopted multiple historic districts in order to conserve our built environment, but the result has also been the protection in many cases of older housing stock, which contains naturally occurring affordable housing, both RSO units and non-RSO units. This is why UNNC supports Council File number 240490, which would restore the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone HPOZ review process to the 81 exceptions, that's a list of exceptions, for any permits required for 100% affordable housing projects within their boundaries. However, the motion as presented, and that's not our motion, but that meaning the council file motion, has missed some of the nuances of the city's many historic districts, which include not only HPOZs, but also California Register and National Register districts, along with certain specific plans that include historic preservation components in the newer character residential districts, which also include historic preservation as a focus. UNNC urges the city council to expand this motion to include all of the various types of designated historic districts. And the reason we use the word designated is there's some lack of clarity about the character residential districts. So if they're designated, yes, and if they're not, no, but we didn't want to keep, that was also a long discussion, we didn't want to keep talking about it. So, Steve.
So I think that this accurately reflects the discussion in the last meeting.
Yeah.
However, before I make a motion, I have a question, which
Sure.
is why this statement doesn't include a similar preamble as the other statement about the importance of affordable housing to our community and how much we support it.
I'm so happy to answer that question, and I'm happy, I'd be okay with amending it, because the transcripts were so long, because we talked so long, that I didn't get to this till 6:36 p.m.
Okay, so I would recommend that since they have to be standalone statements, that this
Yes.
statement include a similar preamble about how much our community supports affordable housing.
Okay, I can
With that, I make a motion to accept this statement with the modification.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, David. Okay, is there any further, yes, and so that modification would be something to the effect of actually including the United Neighborhoods of the Historic Arlington Heights, West Adams, and Jefferson Park Communities Neighborhood Council, because I forgot that part too, it's supposed to be in every CIS, it's that sentence, has a long record of supporting affordable housing developments and policy initiatives. Okay, that's the sentence that would be added at the top. Okay. Any discussion? I think we get to vote. Okay, so again, I see we have one more additional person here, well, two more, because I don't know who's on the phone. I just don't know who's on the phone. So essentially, if you are a stakeholder, and that means you live, work, own a property, have a kid in school, attend a church, or participate in a community interest organization which has a brick and mortar address within UNNC's boundaries and which is a nonprofit organization, you are eligible to vote on this motion. And okay. So, all in favor of the draft community impact statement related to 24-0490 with the addition of the amended version of the statement? And are you voting or trying to get my attention? Voting. Okay, all in favor, please raise your real hand or your virtual hand. Okay, any opposition?
My hand is raised.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna. Okay, done. Now we're moving on to 2800 West Jefferson. And you want me to drive your presentation? You want to come to the table, first of all?
Sure, yeah.
And yeah, this is a crappy seat, but yes.
Oh,
no, the AI, because the computer will hide.
I mean, I could, if it's just the arrow, I could even just like stand here and just press it or whatever.
Right.
How would you?
Well, first I have to.
It'd be better if you sit down.
Okay.
Right,
She
go ahead.
just got her through.
Okay.
And let me open the file, actually. But introduce yourself,
Okay.
tell everybody who you are, and give me 1 minute before I do that because I'm sort of hiding you. That, get rid of this. I then want to go back to the Zoom meeting and then I'll share in a minute.
Okay, sure.
Let's see if you talk, see, this is why I'm concerned. Okay.
I see.
Can Cheryl, or could you guys just move over so we can sit maybe in the.
You can see his head.
I know.
You want to have him sit in my seat?
Or sit in Teresa's, yes,
Yeah.
why don't you guys sit?
Well, I mean, yeah, whichever you prefer. So yeah.
Yeah, you can sit in my seat.
Don't you have to play music for
We have, so sorry, musical chairs, so
Without the
sorry,
music.
so sorry. Okay, so, and I know you have colleagues here, so, do the normal, introduce yourself and introduce your colleague, and then I'll do it.
Okay, sure. And am I on the camera right now? or-
There you
Yes, you
are,
are.
see, there you are.
Oh,
So
got
just start-
it. I
It's
see.
AI, it tracks voice.
I see. Oh, okay. You mentioned that.
Yeah, it
that's
tracks
right.
voices, sometimes tracks, wrestling papers, Yeah, that's why, but it doesn't do a good job if you're hidden behind this screen.
Got it.
So you're, talk both to us and them.
Okay, all right, appreciate it. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Gary Benjamin with Alchemy Planning and Land Use. I'm representing the applicant here who is on the line. Steve Lim, he and his wife own the property. It's currently Lim's Auto Service, so they've owned it for a while. Also joined by Kevin Tsai, who's KT on the line there, who's the architect for the project. So do you have are the slides up? Or
Yeah, I'll pull them up now.
Okay.
So for those on Zoom, somebody tell me if you can actually see the screen. Is there
Yes.
some?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, and I'm gonna take it down. Is that too small or is that a good size?
It was
Make it
good the
back the way
size
it was.
before.
Yeah.
Okay,
There
All
you
right.
go.
okay.
Okay, great. Could you advance to the next slide? Got it. So yeah, so this slide is just orienting the area where it's located. The site's at 2800 to 2814 West Jefferson Boulevard at the intersection of Jefferson and 8th Avenue. The site is a total of 4 lots altogether. It's a 21,250 square foot site. The zone is C2 1VL CPIO. And it's currently occupied with 2 auto repair buildings, as well as a 2-bedroom single-family home on the lot, on the far west lot there highlighted.
Next.
Yep. This is just, there's several slides that are just going to be views of the surrounding area for those just to kind of orient the context. So this is a view looking in towards the site. Again, it's the 3 lots with the auto repair facility and then just the, what's technically a single family dwelling to the right there. So you can kind of just click through and, this is a view looking directly at the site at what's on the lot now. This is a view looking west on Jefferson. View looking south on 8th Avenue adjacent to the site, and then looking east with the site there on the right. Okay, then we get into the renderings here. So what we're proposing altogether on the property, it's a 6-story building that would have 70 units altogether. Of those, that would be 10 studios, 21 bedroom units, 35 2-bedroom units, and 5 3-bedroom units. Of those, 9 of those would be very low income affordable units, which is, for the city's calculation, they consider 16% affordable. It would have a 2,000 square foot commercial space at the ground floor. We don't exactly know what the tenant would be. We're kind of showing it as like a retail store. We've also identified it potentially as a restaurant, but that's going to sort of depend upon what kind of tenant interest we get ultimately. The project has 45 parking spaces at the ground floor, as well as 60 long-term bike parking spaces and 8 short-term spaces. In terms of the design of the building, the materials, we have several different colors of stucco that we've utilized, including like a charcoal, a gray, and a light brown stucco. There's also a wood tile siding material that we've proposed to provide additional visual interest. There would be metal railings. You can see for the balconies, glass railings as well. And the design is kind of generally characterized by trying to make it more interesting than just your typical standard building. You can see all the different sort of angled sections that create articulation and visual interest, in connection with the large windows and the balcony spaces. At the ground level, as I mentioned, there's a glass storefront at the corner, and then to the right is there's a 3-foot landscape buffer, which would be buffering the parking area that we have at the ground level. There was a question about street trees at one point. The project will have, we're proposing right now 6 street trees adjacent to the site. We just didn't include them in the renderings just because it would block the building, but we were proposing 6 4x4 tree wells on Jefferson and then another 3 on 8th Avenue. And the street tree types we expect would be selected by this city. I think you can move to the next slide now.
Or not. All right.
Is this the shorter version? Oh, there you go.
just skipped one.
Is there a way to go full screen mode? I think then it kind of like puts them all to the same size, so you don't have to like zoom in, zoom out.
Because I,
You can just click on the.
It doesn't look like it's a Zoom, it looks like it's in a PDF.
it is a PDF. It's not a PowerPoint, so there is not.
Yeah.
Okay,
You
got it.
probably created this in PowerPoint.
You can just, well, I can just, if you scroll on the mouse, you can just do it. That's the next photo, the next slide.
This is the
right?
next
Yeah,
one.
this is just another image. This is showing more of the 8th Street frontage, which again extends sort of the similar design approach with, as you can see, sort of the angular, building sections providing, like I said, some more visual interest, the wood tile elements, and then you can also see at the corner the sort of wraparound glass that we're proposing. The lobby entrance would be on 8th Avenue as well. And as I mentioned, there would be street trees as well, but we just didn't render those in.
So we don't know what this is.
Yeah, this is
Oh, there
another
it is, the
another
larger-
view, but I think you'd have to zoom out a little bit.
Yeah, we can do,
Okay.
so. There we go.
One of the nice things we're able to accomplish with this, so the parking entrance would be off of the alley, so that allows us to kind of activate like the full sort of frontage with either landscaping or the retail store frontage. And then again, you can see that's the lobby entrance where it says like 2800 there on the side of 8th Avenue. So I think the next exhibits are the plans, so we can move to those images.
I know, I just went through, it went
There
to
you go.
two,
Yeah.
Is this,
Oh.
okay.
There we go.
So.
And will it focus for us? That's a good question. It's not gonna focus, but that's okay. We can.
Do you have it?
Yeah.
Do you have it?
I don't have the PowerPoint. For those of us
It
in the
looks
room.
good.
I do.
Yeah.
Oh, looks good.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
All right.
So this is showing most of the ground floor here. So the ground floor, as I stated, we have a commercial space at the corner. In terms of the project's going to be required to give to widen the alley by 4 feet, also to widen the sidewalk by 1.5 feet, and then also right now the building comes to like a right, or the lot comes to a right angle. So we'd be required to kind of create that corner cut to allow for sort of visibility around the corner. So, and then as I mentioned, we have parking at the ground level, but along Jefferson, the city requires a 3-foot landscape setback. So that would be like a 3-foot landscaped area that would buffer that. And so we've proposed sort of like a green screen on that portion of the wall that then like the greenery would grow on and kind of block the parking area on that side. And then
So- And are you saying it's a 1.5 foot dedication?
Yes, it's a 1.5 foot dedication. So it would be a sidewalk widening for that.
Okay, so most of the projects, I know I'm interrupting, but we'll come back to it. Most of the projects we've dealt with for the last 20 years
Mhm.
have had waivers of the dedications on Jefferson. So we'll talk about that later. Let's
Okay,
moving
sure.
on.
Yes, I think you could go to the, we also have short-term bike parking by the lobby entrance and the commercial entrance, but, and then kind of going up from there, most of the floor plans are going to be pretty similar. We have 15 units each on levels 2 and 3, 14 units on level 4, and then it would go to 13 units on level 5 and 6. Here you can see on this exhibit, the second level, we have a courtyard. It's a 1,242 square foot courtyard with landscaping in the center of the building. So the units kind of go around the central courtyard. And then the other thing that you're seeing sort of around the edge of the building is we've proposed some patios. So the patios are set back 5 feet from the perimeter of the building, from the property lines, but the building itself is set back further. So starting at the, in general, for a commercial building, or for a mixed-use building, they allow the commercial level to like occupy like the full lot, basically. But then starting up at the residential level, if not including just the patio, which just has basically like a railing that extends in that area. So it's a 13.5 foot setback on the west side, and then altogether it's a 15-foot setback from the alley side, basically.
And then the center thing, is that a courtyard that's on this podium, on this level?
Yeah, so this is like the second, so basically the ground level is like parking and commercial with the lobby entrance. Then going up to the second level, it's residential, but with like a landscape courtyard in the middle. So you'd be able to access that from the second level, and then it would just be open above that. So, so there you can see kind of the sort of repeating floor pattern as it goes up, with the central kind of void space in the middle looking down.
So
on the
we're
courtyard.
looking, if you're on that level, you get to look down.
Right.
Okay.
So then those units would have like sort of, windows, or I
Not
guess.
balconies, but windows.
Correct, yeah. And so, yeah, the remainder, I think the only other difference, if you get to like the roof plan, which should be slide 18.
Oh, where I am.
Yeah.
They did, there we go.
There you go.
So
So-
I just see void.
Yeah. So to meet the open space requirements, we have also proposed two, well, really it's connected, but it's two separate sort of seating areas at the roof level. But additionally, we've strived to set those back like pretty far from the building perimeter, so they're not sort of extending all the way to the edge of the roof, but are focused, at the center of the building. So. And then, these are the elevation images, but they're very similar to the rendering images. It kind of just gives you a better sense of, essentially we have glass storefront for the eastern half of the Jefferson frontage, and then, as I noted, sort of like the green screen at the ground level, which would be like with the landscape, 3-foot landscape buffer that would grow on that green screen. This is showing the 8th Street side. So again, that would be all glass for the lobby entrance and for the commercial on that side at the ground level. And then the other sides are less interesting. The driveway entrances are not shown for whatever reason, but this is the alley side, which would be just where the driveway entrance would be essentially. And then just the last.
Doing two things at once.
Yeah, no problem. And then this side, that's not showing anything on that ground level just because that's abutting immediately up to the property line, for the next door. So, and then these are the landscape plans. I think this is sort of an overall, but if you go to the next one, it'll go. So at the ground level, again, showing where the street trees are proposed as well as the landscape buffer along Jefferson. And then this is showing those patios I described at the second level. So those will also be like fully ringed with a landscape planter, essentially, kind of providing buffer to the adjacent properties and also privacy for the residents of those units. And then the landscaping in the central courtyard. And then the last one was just the rooftop seating area.
You see, it just had a mind of its own.
Yeah.
Lord. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and of course, I'm happy to go over any of those in greater detail if anybody wants to discuss any, but I think that's probably good enough for now. So yeah, thank you for your time. And just to clarify, so this is what's a density bonus project. It does require City Planning Commission approval for this type of density bonus, and then it has what used to be called site plan review that they now call project review. So. Yeah, so any questions, happy to engage in any dialogue or anyone else.
Well, I do,
Yeah.
I see David has his hand up, Steve has his hand up, I just have one, everyone's gonna have their hand up, I have
Yeah.
a technical question.
Yeah,
The
Dolores has her hand up as well.
Everybody has their hand up, you can see the room, but my technical question, the zone is essentially the commercial, but it's dash 1VL
Correct.
dash CPIO.
Mm-hmm.
What is the height limit of 1VL?
So the base height limit is 45 feet for 1VL.
And that's 3 stories or 4 stories?
So for a mixed-use building, that is a 3-story limit. For whatever reason, they don't have a limit on residential. I never really knew why they did that, but there's no limit on residential only, but on mixed use, it is a 3-story limit.
Okay,
1VL.
and the
Yeah.
CPIO, to what extent do you or do you not comply with the CPIO requirements?
Yeah, so the things that the CPIO requirements,
And
they're,
I should say, for those who are not jargon oriented, CPIO still has no meaning when you know that it's community plan implementation ordinance. But, so CPIO means nothing really. But what it is a kind of overlay in South LA and in the West Adams community plans and
Mhm.
expanding to other community plans now, But this one happens to be a commercial one, but what kind, is it neighborhood serving? What is the CPIO?
This is the full name, it's the West Adams Baldwin Hills Lamert Community Plan Implementation Overlay is what they call it, and it's the commercial corridor sub-area, so.
So is that the neighborhood serving, or is that the next one up, if you know?
I'm not,
Okay.
I'd have to look at the reference.
Okay.
I used to know the sub-area, they call it commercial corridors, but I'm not, yeah.
All right. Okay, so I have no idea how to decide the order. I know when I go to HPOZ.
Let's take one there and then one.
Okay, back and forth and back and forth. So let's start with Dolores. Thank you.
Just unmuting myself. Three real quick. Did you say, I'm speaking with the presenter, did you say that the lot had auto repair and a private house on that lot?
Yes, that's
What
right.
happens to the private, the house, the people?
Well, I mean, so the city has so it is currently occupied, or at least it was occupied when I submitted the application. And so that resident, my understanding, the housing department requires a lot of information to be submitted these days. So I know at that time he was paying $2,500 a month to live in the 2-bedroom house. He does have, if he can prove that he is a low-income tenant, he actually has a right to return to the new building. And then in terms of leaving the house, I'm not exactly certain of, what his plans are, what may have been worked out with the owner, but I just know that that's sort of the city's policy, is that under, what they call like State Bill 8, we're required to replace that with like a like unit at that same income level, and then that tenant himself is given a right to return to that. Of course, it's, obviously they don't really plan for the time in between, but that is the state policy, so.
And the other two, what is considered affordable housing pricing, and what are those units? What are the other units going for?
Yeah, so out of the units, so 9 of them are required to be very low income, and that the breakdown of those, I anticipate it would be 1 studio, 3 1-bedrooms, 4 2-bedrooms, and 1 3-bedroom. Those would be the affordable, because it has to be like an even distribution of the unit types we're proposing. And the current, like the maximum levels that the tenant can pay are $809 for a studio, $925 for a 1-bedroom, $1,041 for a 2-bedroom, and $1,156 for a 3-bedroom. And for this type of thing, the owner will be required to record a covenant, and then what they do is they actually do have to certify the income every year. The city has like a contractor that they hire. I think they're based in like Long Beach, and they review all this stuff. But every single year you have to pay like a fee. Like every unit's like $173, and then that fee covers like the administrative paperwork related to verifying the income and rent levels. So yeah.
Thank you.
One in the room. Oh.
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
All right, so I'll keep it brief. Full disclosure, I live on 8th Avenue, about a block away. I've looked at you're asking for some serious off-menu incentives on all this development, or on all these density bonuses.
Right.
I'll just go through a couple questions that I have quickly about your proposed findings, which seem kind of crazy to me, some of these. So like, you mentioned within 1/2 mile of a major transit stop.
Mm-hmm.
What is that transit stop?
So the transit stop is actually so for the purposes of this, because they just changed some things. But I'll say for the purposes of these findings, it actually goes off of the parking garage for the Crenshaw Metro.
Okay, because I know the Crenshaw Metro stop is a 0.8 mile walk from this site, so it's less than 1/2 mile.
Right.
You're right. It might, from the parking
for the
garage.
state density bonus purposes, they consider that part of the overall facility.
Okay. So at one point you mentioned Jefferson has very limited foot traffic, so that assumes you expect people to be driving. But you're getting a huge parking. You're looking for 1/2 a parking spot per unit, no parking for the commercial. So people don't walk on Jefferson, but you're going to give them no parking for the residents or for the commercial. For the commercial, where do employees park? Where do people come to visit?
Mm-hmm.
And for the residents, people are not going to be riding their bikes on Jefferson Boulevard. It's a death trap. So to have 60 bike parking spots, that's just ridiculous. Nobody's gonna be riding their bikes. And it's just like you contradict yourself. Again, you say, yeah, just with the no parking, very limited foot traffic, but then you want 0 commercial parking spots, employees. I mean, that's a big issue is gonna be the parking for all the neighbors. I've already spoken with all my neighbors on the block and the height. You got a 70-foot building going up for the neighboring height district. Even the R1 XLOs around there are 30 foot. So you're gonna have a building that even if people eventually develop the single family homes around there, it's still gonna be twice the height. And there's no parking. That's really there's already no parking there. People are double parking all the time. I mean, yeah, so I don't know. That's my spiel. That's all I got for you.
So you
I don't know, there's some
want me to
questions
respond
in
one
there.
by one, or do you want me to
Well,
wait until?
So the purpose tonight is
Yeah.
kind of to develop questions, so I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah.
I think I think if it's a direct question, when I say, what does one VL mean? You
Okay.
should respond, but I think this you should collect because other people may have further comment that's similar in nature
Okay.
or not. So
Mhm.
let's just collect the questions.
Okay.
Okay, so it depends. I'm gonna say it depends. David Saffer.
Thank you very much, and I'll go on video for this. Let me put my hand down. Few questions. I know we're not going to get responses today, so I just wanted to ask. One of them was partially covered, but I wanted to know all the density bonuses you're requesting, all the off-site. You mentioned the
Well, that one
transit
can get answered today. That'd be a good one to answer.
Is it in the packet?
It's probably in the packet, but when we get to the end of questions, please answer
Okay.
that question.
Secondly, I would like to see. I know in the presentation, and I will say I do like the efforts you've made in the design of the building. I think it's an interesting design rather than the standard stucco box. So I do appreciate that. But I do think the renderings very cleverly shown, and you even said in your presentation, the other sides, the alley side and the other side are uninteresting. So we didn't do a full rendering. That's the side the neighbors are going to see. So that's the side I think we really need to see a lot more of. So what that's going to be looking like from the people that live on 8th, 9th, from that side. Also, the roof, there was no indication of how far those setbacks are. You made a comment on we've pushed that way in, but where in all of your renderings it's not visible, so you have no way of knowing what it is, and there's no floor plan for the roof that indicates how far that pushback is. So I'd like to see that and know what that is like, because essentially what you're doing is creating a 7-story up there with that outdoor seating and all the barbecue area and the game area. So you've created, yes, it's only 6 stories what you're presenting, but you're creating a 7-story with that roof. And so I'd like to see what that looks like. And then also the really what it looks like at the base level. I know when we talked about the building on 4th and Jefferson, there was a lot of concern about what the alley would look like, what they were going to do to prevent graffiti on that alley, the plantings that were used to cover the base. Would it be visible from the outside? All those kinds of things need to be discussed. And they're currently not indicated from what I could see in any of the presentations so far. I'll leave it at that for the time being. Steve, I think we'll probably have more. So I'll leave some more things for him.
So I'm more here to complain than ask a whole lot of questions.
Okay.
Okay. First of all, I'll just say a couple of things. One is that I understand that you developers have found this area and have discovered this area and have sunken your teeth in over here and thought, hey, this area needs 7 stories. This needs 100 units. This needs no parking. If you guys actually spent a half a second in this neighborhood, then you would understand that this is more than just a parcel of real estate. These are our homes. This is where we have planted our roots. I have been here for almost 30 years. And for 29 of those years, you guys have left this area alone. We have been fine. You guys started doing Adams and you started putting up all this massive stuff. Granted, it's, you know, commercial, but it's the commercial underneath. And then you got the apartments upstairs and it's all, oh, it's low income and we're here to help the community. You're not helping. You're not adding anything to this area. And aesthetically, the fact that he lives on 8th Avenue, so every day, not only is he gonna have to drive through all this traffic to accommodate all these new people that are moving into a 6-story building and have 0 parking. Like, did you guys do any kind of an environmental study on the parking over here? Because I think not. If you're only gonna allow for a certain amount of, okay, first of all, he's right. Bike riding doesn't exist over here. And you got about maybe 6 people and we have bike lanes. There are about maybe all of 10 people that ride their bikes over here. So the fact that you have parking for bikes, it's not gonna happen. People aren't gonna park their bikes there. 1, they're gonna get stolen. 2, you know, they're not riding to the transit and parking their bike. This isn't Santa Monica. This isn't Venice. This isn't West LA. This is a historic part. And we live here. And now we're gonna have to, you guys wanna extend a sidewalk, which is gonna make the driving on Jefferson that much smaller when it's already a tight fit. Like he said, it's a death trap over there. You wanna try and make a left turn during, you know, 6 o'clock rush hour, you are taking your chances on getting rear-ended. But the other part of it is what are you doing for the house that lives next door to this, where all of these windows are now looking over into their private backyards or through their windows? Are you gonna put up a 60-foot wall so those people won't have their privacy, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Thank you. Taken away? I mean, you're doing more than just giving people housing. You're taking people's their way of lives away. And the fact that I've been here for 30 years, that means that I have to look, I could probably see this out of my back window. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see this. And if you did anything by looking in the community, if you drive down Jefferson, do you see anything that's 6 stories? Because I haven't seen one thing 6 stories in that neighborhood. And all the pictures that you showed on your slide, everything is 1 to 2 stories. There's nothing. That means that you're gonna see this from La Cienega, that you're gonna see this from downtown. Nobody wants to see that. If you wanna do something for the neighborhood, bring it down. Bring it down. Offer the neighbors some kind of security. Now all of a sudden you're going from 0 to 250 people like that. With no parking.
Well, no, but, okay. All right. Steve is next.
Well, thank you. So one is, I'm a newcomer to the neighborhood. I've only been here 20 years. So that's just as a prologue. Second, I have several questions. I'm gonna have to run through them each. Number one is I agree with everything that's been said so far. Regarding the height of the building, there are a few questions there. One is I didn't see in the plans a light study and how the requested number of floors will impact in terms of shadow on the neighbors in the single-story houses to the south. Have you done that study and what does it show? That's a direct question.
Oh, okay.
That's a yes or no.
Okay, yeah, I can answer that. So this is what's considered a transit priority area. And so shadow impacts are not considered a significant impact for CEQA purposes. in a transit priority area. So for that reason, we have not done a shadow study.
So,
Wait,
yeah,
Steve, let me just
sorry,
follow
Laura,
that.
hang on.
Okay.
So I understand that it may not be required by law, but I think picking up on the last person's comments, it would be helpful for the neighbors to know how they're impacted. I think I know why you didn't do the study, besides the fact that it's not required by law, which is by building almost lot line to lot line, especially from the north to the south, you're going right directly to the alley, that they're going to be seriously impacted in terms of being in cast shadow. Second, about the height of the building, I think the comments about the plans and what you've indicated on them regarding the use of the roof are really critical for the community to see. Further, I didn't see, and maybe you can answer this question, what you're doing for sound barriers, specifically on the rooftop for the neighbors, again, to the south who are in the single-story homes. So you have barbecues and other party areas on the roof. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of sound emanating from the roof. What's the plan to reduce the noise from the roof onto the neighbors? That's also a direct question.
Well, it may not be answerable.
Yeah, I mean, I understood. I just heard about this meeting on Friday, so I hadn't, but I
just heard about this meeting yesterday or this morning.
Yeah.
Sorry, hold on.
I mean, I've gotten a lot of
Gary, first of all,
questions.
I
I'm
just
happy
wanna
to
say-
address everything.
Gary, thank you very
Okay.
much for coming. We know this is initial consultation,
Right.
so
Right, and you may
everybody's
not
gonna
have
be
a good
thrown.
answer for this.
Right, so please just take our comments
Right.
and be prepared next time to answer them. That's
Right.
not, we're not here to, bombard you and expect everything right away.
So other developers have agreed to put up sound barriers so that sound from top floor construction is somehow treated so that the neighbors you're minimizing the disturbance to the neighbors. Regarding the interior spaces of each unit, and maybe this is on the drawings, I didn't see it. I couldn't see any designation for closets. Are they on the drawings?
Well, we can answer that. We have the paper version.
And while they're looking that up, Steve, I'd like to comment that there are a lot of things. We don't have CEQA. ED1 allows developers to circumvent CEQA.
This is not.
I know, California Environmental.
Yeah, well, maybe we can get to that when I'm done, but
But they're looking
I
up
think-
your other question, Steve, so just hold on a second. And also, development has been going on for quite a while. Down Adams, we saw CIM just.
Yeah, they all the rooms are showing closets.
It's
in the
those
floor
X's,
plan.
right?
I mean, it's hard for me to
Here.
present to Steve, I guess, but it's
These.
I mean, I'm just looking at them. I see a closet in every room, so
Okay, great. I couldn't identify them, so thank you for acknowledging that. And so, in terms of the alley, you said you're going to widen it. Did I understand by 4 feet?
Question two.
So sorry, you asked about the alley specifically?
Yes.
Alley,
Is it-
yeah.
Yeah, so it's right now it's a substandard alley, so we'd be required to widen it by 4 feet and to pave it.
So the widening will be on your side of the property.
Yeah, and I think there was some confusion about the sidewalk widening too, that was, I think that maybe there was confusion that was extending into the roadway. We mean we're giving up our property for these
Right.
additional right of way.
Right,
Yeah.
okay. So my other question, I think I have two more. I hope to not take too much more time. So I'm also concerned about the parking because it doesn't appear that your plans, at least the way I read them, have any parking for the commercial vendors that you hope to have on the ground floor, or for the users of those commercial vendors or the employees. There are a lot of family-run businesses on Jefferson. Parking is already a very serious issue on Jefferson. So how will the lack of parking for customers and employees impact not only the neighbors in the houses, but the other businesses on Jefferson, where it's already negatively impacted due to a lack of surplus of parking? And so you have ground floor parking that's restricted to residents, not even covering all of the units, and nothing for commercial. That just doesn't make any sense to me in this neighborhood that's already heavily impacted. So that was another one of my observations. And again, I only had a chance to review the plans late this afternoon because I only found out about the meeting this morning. So I covered the light. The reduction in open space that you're requesting is 20% reduction. Is that correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm. And is there, I realize that it may be allowable under the rules, but is it actually good housing planning to reduce the open space requirement by 20%? Meaning that may have a serious impact on the quality of life of the people who live in the building. And I hope, and I realize that by having full open space meeting the normal requirements would reduce the number of units. But I think that it should be seriously considered because the quality of life of the people who live there should be the predominant issue. And finally, I have a serious concern about the normally restricted to 45-foot height total for the building, and the fact that you're building essentially lot line to lot line, what will be a 7-story building if you include the top as a tenant space, which it is. So you have 70 feet in a neighborhood that's single-story houses. Typically, what's required is a transitional height to the neighbors. And that accomplishes two things, right? It adds distance between the neighbors and the multi-unit building. And two is it allows sun to continue to hit some of those neighbors. It goes back to my first question. And so I'm very concerned that this is a solid cube structure in a very small lot that will obscure sunlight for the neighbors and should seriously consider transitional height and put the tallest part of the building onto Jefferson and have it transition down to the people who actually live on 8th. And I guess that would be 9th in the other direction too. So to me, I think the issue here is one of respect. And it's one of respect for the community that pre-exists your presence and respect for the people who deserve quality housing, who will be living in the building. And I hope that the developer, the person who owns the property, and the architect consider our concerns very seriously, because the fundamental principle behind good architecture should be respect for the community, including the people who live in the building. Thank you.
That was very good.
Stephen, it's nothing but if not eloquent. Sandra, Paul, did you still have a question? I see your hand. I know, because you took her hand down. I just want to. Sandra, did your question get asked, or did you just take your hand down? Or did you leave the room for a minute? Maybe you left the room for a minute.
No, she's back.
Oh, she's back. Hi. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for taking my question. No, Steve said everything, as well as the prior speaker. I think the majority of the folks I've spoken to that are on 12th Avenue, Edge Hill, Bronson, Norton, they're all fearful of what is going to happen when we have no parking available. We already are challenged with parking. And now when you're talking about a 7-foot structure in our community, which are primarily single-family dwellings that are 1 story, it feels as if whoever this developer is only looking at profitability and not the community as we stand. We're a historic group of folks that love this area and want to see it continue to thrive in its current state. So we're just concerned, and I'm glad Steve spoke, as well as the lady that spoke before me. I appreciate your comments.
So, Teresa, you have questions? I'm going to have questions, and I see Carla has now raised her hand.
Carla.
Okay, Carla.
Hello, I'm not going to put my camera on because I look very distasteful, but I want to say that also live here in the neighborhood, just down on 8th, and I do appreciate, that there is new energy in this town and a lot of good change as well as scary change is happening in this neighborhood, but something that I think hasn't yet been touched on is just the construction impact and what exactly would the expected timeline for construction be and what measures would be taken to minimize, destruction to the neighborhood if this were to become a real thing. And I guess before, if that is something you can answer, I just want to echo what the room is saying here, that I think the biggest concern as a local neighbor is just parking. That's a huge, huge issue for me. That's all.
Is KT the owner or the architect?
KT is the architect.
Right.
Okay, is the owner still here?
Yes, Steve.
Oh, Steve. Hi, Steve. This is Teresa Masonette. How long have you owned this lot? And had this auto repair business?
It is here still. Yeah, people go.
Yes, I know. Do you have any idea, Gary, how long he's been in the neighborhood?
Yeah, I do.
While you're looking at it, I want to say a couple of things. I'm also concerned about parking.
Mhm.
And I don't know, I know on another project, Crenshaw Crossing, the developer worked with the neighbors
Mhm.
to get parking restriction. So that might be an option. I don't know what kind of parking you guys have now on 8th Avenue.
It's a regular park.
Regular parking, so if you are unable to increase the parking spots, then maybe you can work with the surrounding blocks to get parking restriction placards or designations so that people can't park there during the day or overnight or something. That might be a way to appease the community by helping them with the parking. Regarding the alley, I want to make sure I understand that too. You're reducing the building's footprint on the alley, which by 4 feet?
It just means, right now.
Yeah, so I guess,
Yeah,
let me
we're
tell, the
widening.
reason why is because I would mind seeing some, I mean, I don't know what the traffic flow is like,
Mhm.
but some in-ground tree plantings in the alley, and that, it'd take a while, but that could help buffer some of the sound from just the alley noise to some of the residents on the first few floors. I'd like to also know where the DWP transformer is going to be.
Mhm.
Is that going to be on the front, on Jefferson, or on?
That'll be on 8.
That'll be on 8th, like on the, near the garage
Like against the
entrance?
alley, yeah. It's far south, on the site plan, you can see it. Basically, you have the building at the intersection, Jefferson frontage, 8th Avenue, the alley here, and so they would be like right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're, what I saw in your plan, that you're putting in 3 4x4 trees along 8th Avenue?
I mean, ultimately, it would be up to urban forestry to decide like how many can adequately fit, but
Right,
that's
because
what
right now, UFD only has allocated 1 parking spot, I mean, 1 tree well.
Mhm.
So I guess my question is, how do you anticipate getting 3, or getting approval for 3?
Mhm.
And especially if there's gonna be entrance and exits out of the garage, there,
Mhm.
I think it's a 30-foot
Yeah.
space.
Well, that'll be on the alley, but yeah. Mhm.
The entrance and
Yeah,
exit,
no
it's gonna be from the alley?
driveways on either street, yeah.
It's all coming from the alley?
Right.
And what about, will people be able to make left turns and right turns? Or are you gonna just say only
Well, they're
right
just
turns?
coming out of the alley, so, oh, you mean like out of the alley?
Out of the parking garage, yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not a very long block, really, I mean, it's,
Oh,
it's like the reason, so right now the alley's only 12 feet. So that's why we're adding 4 additional feet to the alley width, basically, or would be required to do that. And our property sort of takes up more than half of the frontage, so, I think they likely would be able to go either way, although to be honest, I'm not 100% certain of the condition of the alley to the west, but we will be like repaving it.
And that's a street right there. That's the alley.
It's this, but
The
that yellow
skinny,
and the
this is
pink.
the, yeah.
Yes, and then that.
Okay,
the
so
T,
sorry,
the
everybody, you
perpendicular.
guys can't see what
What
we're
is
looking
this?
at.
Yeah, that's another alley.
Right,
that
that's
runs-
what I'd like to know about, because if people find traffic this way, they'll do a shortcut to come through the alley, which are the back of the single-family homes along there.
Mhm.
So I'd like to know,
I mean, I don't know that they would allow us to block the alley. You know, I'm not really sure what the solutions would be that, you know, there, but I mean, we weren't thinking, oh yeah, they're gonna use that alley, you know, and cut through that way, but, I just know sort of what our responsibility is. And I know there's a lot of things, so again, it's like, you want me to just kind of keep jotting these things down for now, or do you wanna start getting into discussion?
Well, yeah, I think, because I actually have some questions, but right now, since you guys were having we're having this private conversation with your map, I'm actually gonna pull up the map, and if you could, and so we could at least, if everyone can see, the space between the pink and the yellow is the alley that we're discussing. And you can see, just because I used the address 2800, that's the first of 4 parcels. So that alley is 12 feet wide, and they're not requiring that you make it the full 20. They're requiring that you make the half alley wider, which seems useless. I mean, frankly. I mean, in other words, so it's still an insufficient alley once you do your 4 feet. It's still not wide enough.
Yeah, I mean, that's, you know.
I know it's the rules,
yeah.
I'm just telling you, but just for everyone, it's still not actually a standard sufficient alley. And this is not about you, I mean, it's just the rules. And you're widening, it was only for the first 4 parcels at 8th Avenue going west. So now the widening comes to a dead halt as well. So,
I have a question.
yeah.
Raise my hand.
Sure, Sandra, go ahead. Oh, Teresa's still speaking.
How do I raise my hand then?
Okay, I'll call you next.
Okay.
I'm now aware you're on my list.
and I too would like to know about the lack of open space. Yes, you have a roof deck, and I know there's some sound concerns about that, but I don't know what the minimum amount is, and I know that you're asking for an exception to that, but I really think that we're concerned about the health and wellness of our community. That's why we advocate for trees, so when people are outside and they're walking down the street, they're in shade, they hear birds, so,
Sun for people that would be blocked.
Huh?
And sun for people that will be blocked.
Yeah, and then that's the other thing, that they're gonna, I know you don't wanna do that light study, we probably already know the results, possible results of that, but all those people are gonna lose shade, I mean, are gonna be in shade, and if you have a garden, if you just go in your backyard to get some vitamin D, you're not gonna be able to do that with the 7-story building, so.
Well, I guess since that's come up a few times, I mean, just to that, I don't have that study. I will just say, I mean, typically, I think we generally understand the arc of the sun as it goes, like in this case, thinking of the people to the south of the building, you know, at least it has that going for it, that we're not, you know, it would be more of an impact if we were developing on the north side of the block, on single-family homes to the north. So in this case, it's not going to be as bad if we were to do the study as you would get if it was on the north side of the block and people to the north. And it will be a 16-foot alley that separates it. And as I also mentioned, the building on the back side, so we have 16-foot alley after we're done widening it, and then it'll go up, you know, one story for the commercial level, and then it's set back 15 feet. And then it goes straight up from there, basically. So it'll actually be like 31 feet altogether for the second story and above, setback from the R1 property. But
Okay.
yeah.
Sandra Pruitt.
Okay, hi. So for the people who live in Jefferson Park, Jefferson Boulevard is already, as everyone has said, a very busy street we've had several accidents on that street because people are driving so fast. So now that you guys want to come in, I don't think you're really thinking about traffic so much because you're more concerned, not traffic, but parking, because as you stated, you're looking to put more bicycle racks in. So your anticipation is that people are going to be I guess, catching the train and coming home and not really looking at people who have cars. Then to talk about having like a parking permits and stuff like that. So you're coming into our neighborhoods and then inconveniencing us. We don't want to have parking permits. There's still not enough parking, and that's not fair. So then when we have company, we have to pay for extra parking for a new bunch of people to be in the neighborhood and inconveniencing us. Really, also there's a building on 4th Ave in Jefferson. I believe that's 5 stories, no? There's an apartment building already on the street. It's 4 stories, Steve. Okay, so we already have one on our block like that in our area. All the developers want to do is cram more people in here and anticipate that everybody's going to be riding the train and not really thinking about cars and parking. And we're already on top of each other, which I really don't even like this idea at all. And the trees, we don't even have good growing trees on Jefferson Boulevard as it is already. All our trees on Jefferson Boulevard are dead.
They're not.
To say it sounds good, you know, in theory, everything
They're
is
not dead. All the trees are not dead, Sandra. Let's
Excuse
just.
me, I live here. I'm doing the talking now, Miss Teresa.
Yeah.
Most of the trees, I'm not saying every single solitary one, but Miss Sandra is in Jefferson Park every day. So I know what I'm talking about. Most of the trees on that street are dead. And the tree wells need some servicing. They have not done that. So in theory, what you're saying, you know, and not to jump on you, sir, you're just, you know, it's about the money. It sounds good, but it's not a good idea for the people who already live here. And we've been doing just fine. We've been living here just fine. All these extra things are adding more noise, more people, more businesses that we don't even want. We want housing, low, beautiful homes, you know, not these big apartment buildings and more people. So good luck. I hope we get a vote on it because we the people that live here, not just the people that's on the board doing all the talking, but the Jefferson Park residents are not happy. We don't want it.
Well, we're not voting tonight. There's no,
Rosie.
yeah, do I know?
Yeah, just
Poor,
Rosie.
the poor Miss Chair doesn't get to.
Yeah, I have a question about the alley. So the alley will go to, you widen it to the north. Okay, so what type of doors is that going to be for the parking? Is that going to be open parking? Or is it going to be a gates there? Are gates going to open? Can you just walk in? How is that supposed to be designed?
Yeah, because it's all residential parking, and so it's going to be, you know, it's all residential assigned parking. So there's going to be 2 openings on the alley, and yeah, those are going to have like the kind of like gate that you would get, you know, like key card access, clicker access, some kind of electronic access into the.
Okay, so but the alley won't have a gate on it that you can't go through the alley as a private resident.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so your landscape, I propose that you use California native drought tolerant landscape so that they won't just be dead and something that's, you're right. But those will less watering that they'll need.
Can I just ask a quick question? How do you determine who's gonna get the parking in that building and who's not?
Well, so the state actually requires that you have separate charge for parking now. And you have to make it sort of equally available to both the affordable tenants, and so you still can charge the affordable tenants, but it can't be like, oh, we're not going to give it to the affordable tenants. It just, whatever the rate is, if it's, you know, $150 a month or, you know, whatever it is, I don't know what it would cost. I'm just saying, I don't know exactly what it would cost, but whatever it is, it just has to be equal to everybody, and, you know, and then first come, first serve, basically at that, so.
So it's gonna be me next. Yeah, I understand. So I think that what was just brought up about native plants and drought tolerant is, you know, UNNC's policy is pretty much native. Native, and I think the list is not that easily changed. But I have some things that are really not easily changed. So the CPIO is what I believe requires the frontage. I mean, you're asking for an off-menu incentive essentially to permit 37% of the frontage to be provided as public interior space. Does that mean a commercial? What does that mean? That's the retail?
I think they say that, they don't just say commercial,
lieu of-
because it could also mean a community room or things like
Right,
that.
in lieu of 75% as is otherwise provided by the CPAO.
Right.
So the thing is,
Mhm.
it's not like the people who drafted the CPIO were not aware that this is a transit, near transit, and that it's not like their intention wasn't, double negative, to create eyes on the street, pedestrian friendly new building. So this is a very purposeful requirement in the CPIO that went through a lot of community vetting. I mean, this is, what were our goals? And pedestrian friendly, eyes on the street, green, and we did not mean at the time EV, I'm gonna get to that, but we meant actually green, like a lot of plantings. Neighborhood serving, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this doesn't seem to be the right kind of request. I mean, it may be a legal request, but doesn't seem to reflect what the community worked for years, and I mean literally 10 years to get this overlay that had certain requirements. The next off-density bonus is for relief from the 600 square foot loading zone requirement. How is any retail business or even a restaurant going to bring in its goods and supplies with no loading zone? And it's, without having any commercial parking, without having a loading area, it's kind of going to guarantee you won't get a good tenant. And that is what happened literally at a building we all like, didn't necessarily like it up front, but like it now, the Gramercy Apartments on Washington. They never were able to rent the commercial space that was supposed to be a restaurant because the combination of having, in that case, it's affordable housing and no parking. Technically, there's parking, but you can't get to it because of the residential parking. So no parking, no loading zone, no nothing. They went, they spent 2 years looking for a restaurant and ultimately they've rented to a nonprofit. It's actually a good end result, but they're not really making a lot of money. I mean, that space was supposed to provide some cash flow. So, you're cutting off, not you, but it sort of cuts off many avenues when there is no parking, none whatsoever for the, thing. Also, what you don't show here is rideshare spot. I mean, in other words, if most of the people who live there are, as we ease out of COVID, going to be hailing, as it were, getting rides, where are they being picked up and dropped off? Something we used to talk about, we haven't talked about in a couple of years because with COVID, nobody wanted it, but reality is going back to that. So, I'm concerned about a lot of it. Also concerned, there's some things that are requesting as waiver of development standard. The height district is not a development standard, it's embedded in the zoning. It's embedded in the CPIO and it's also embedded in the 1BL. And you may or may not, everybody may or may not be aware of the recent California Appellate Court ruling, which is final because the California Supreme Court left it in place, that a city is not required to grant waivers, incentives, or approve a project if it's not consistent with the zoning. So that's a change from what the city attorney has been telling the planning commission now for a couple of years. You have to approve it, you have to approve it. They no longer have to, and that's a final decision on the statewide basis. So there's got to be really good findings to get to that. And calling the height district a development standard may not be accurate. So I understand maybe, for years I've been the chair, co-chair of this UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee, and certainly when the 4th and Washington project was happening at 4 stories, I think, it took an awful lot of discussion with the community to get the understanding that in order to provide the housing numbers that the city is required by the state to provide, we're going to need to develop our corridors with mixed use housing. And that brought a bill, but that was a compromise discussion. It was proposed as 5, it came down to 4.
Or I
Yeah.
think you're talking about 4th and Jefferson, not 4th and
I
Washington.
am talking about 4th and Jefferson. And how many years did that conversation go on, David? Couple, 2?
2 developers, 4 years, I think.
Yeah, but the conversation about the height.
Yeah, quite a while.
Yeah, yeah. And because it is difficult in a neighborhood that's consistently single family, not just single family homes, but even the duplexes are 1 stories. So the contrast between the two. And the noise that travels off of rooftop anythings is a factor, and we're all awaiting the next Supreme Court ruling, and this one is going to the Supreme Court, about whether noise is or isn't a CEQA issue. But at the moment, it is a CEQA issue, meaning it went through appellate as a CEQA issue that no one had been addressing. So the noise that floats off the top is, problematic. I don't, probably because I can't see it, but what about the EV parking? Is it gonna be fully available? Not necessarily built out, but you have 2 transformers. Is there gonna be enough electrical capacity for when the time comes for everyone has an electric car to go almost plug and play? Or are we suddenly
What is the
gonna?
minimum they have to have?
I mean, the minimum's 35%. I don't know if they've
Right,
done more.
but do you have enough electrical planned with the 2 transformers that you can get to 100% in theoretically 2035, right? I don't think that's gonna stick, but right now, that's the goal. It's just 10 years from now, where people are not gonna be driving gas cars. So it's not very long away, so that's another question. I'm not gonna keep, we're gonna have to have, obviously, a longer discussion.
Not to cut you off, Sheila, I just want to, what is the requirement when a developer or someone sells a single family home and someone is displaced? Are they required to provide so many months of rent? There's a statute for that.
It depends, in terms of the relocation fees, it's based on the number of bedrooms, but it's also based on the age
And
and
the
the length of
Okay.
tenancy.
Steve, for the next meeting, if you could please provide us that information, because there does seem to be some concern about the displacement of the tenant and the single-family home. So if you could talk to us about your plans for
Relocation.
we'd like to hear that.
Right.
Thank you.
And then the other question I would have,
And Cheryl.
you're planning, I've already lost it, 9, 14, X number of affordable units. And then also the replacement unit for, theoretically, for the fella in the single family home. Is that inclusive of the affordable units? Because he may or may not qualify for
I
that.
think he can.
Or does he get, is this one more unit?
So that it is
Like one more RSO unit?
No, it's not, well, first, he's actually not in an RSO
Correct.
unit, but it is still a required replacement unit, but it counts towards the overall number of affordable units.
Right, but what if he doesn't qualify under the affordable rules, with social services?
Yeah.
In other words, he's paying an affordable rent.
Right.
Ish.
Mhm.
That doesn't seem that affordable.
Mhm.
But this family may
You're
not
required
have-
to provide him some.
No, that's what I'm asking.
Okay.
What if he doesn't qualify under the social services rules? What if he's not income qualified for one of those units? Do you still have to give him a relocation unit?
If he's low income, if he can prove that he's low income now, and if he can prove that he's low income at the time that the building
Yeah, so
opens up.
the answer is no, if he's not low income?
If he's not low income, if he's moderate or above,
He doesn't get a replacement unit.
That's correct, yeah.
Right, so that's why it becomes even more important that he is provided a relocation package. Because if he, maybe Steve can find out if he
Well,
qualifies or
noted that
not.
if he gets the relocation package, he immediately no longer qualifies. If it's a decent
But I'm just saying,
location-
if he doesn't, right now does not qualify as low income, then they need to provide him a relocation package, because that means he will not be able to move
back
back into the building. That's,
Right.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
You remember? I'm like you now. No. A question regarding your parking. How will it be given out? Is it first come, first served?
Yeah, it would be first come, first serve. It's sort of like a standard, fixed rate, whatever they establish, the rate, but would be separate from the rent.
But it's not tiered like you make a certain amount and pay this, you pay that.
No, yeah, it just has to be equally available. You can't deny the tenants the same access.
So I do want to point out to everybody that under certain state laws, there's 0 parking required here. So we should be happy that we're getting.
So we're right on basically everything in purple per state law, no parking is required at all, just for contextual purposes. Yeah, and so we are on the edge, as to your point earlier. But
because when I put in Google Maps, it says 0.6 miles.
So we're literally right here. So I will acknowledge we're on the edge of it, but
It looks like, is that 8th Avenue to the right?
Yeah, but
It looks like you're out of it, actually.
No, the point is,
if you zoom in.
Right. It just has to be. So it's 2 of our lots are in, 2 of them are out, but you just need to have 1 in.
Oh, okay.
So that's how it works.
All right.
I mean, look, we wouldn't be doing, what we were doing if we were out. It's just, but just
Once when you put in the address, you're out.
Right, because you put in 2800, but there's.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question though, when they're making that assessment from the parking lot for the metro station?
So, sorry, go ahead.
You're making the assessment of it within a half mile of the center of the parking lot for the metro station?
Well,
if I heard you correctly?
Well, but see, they actually, so we started this project in the fall, and the map actually has changed since then, and I think it's changed because, basically it's the methodology that they now use for the AB 2097, it's not just about the lines that qualify based on the number of trips today, but also even planned trips in the future. And so before it was only the parking garage that qualified us, but now it does seem to be coming directly off the intersection of
Crenshaw and Jefferson.
Crenshaw and Jefferson,
Okay,
which
so
to be honest, I'm not 100% sure why. But I just know that their policy is like, just to simplify it, it's just like if you're on the map, you qualify.
There's a parking lot there. The Metro, West Angeles Church parking is there.
It's not on the corner of Crenshaw.
That's what I was getting at. Doesn't matter if the parking lot
Yeah, that's
is
a
not
gas
owned by Metro.
Guys, with Zoom, I read you need 1 person at a time.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at before I got interrupted, is that parking lot is not Metro's. That parking lot that Metro uses is owned by West Angeles, and it's rental spaces. And Metro has, throughout the years, talked about discontinuing renting those spaces from West Angeles. So I'd be very leery about any computation that's taking the parking lot into consideration, because it's not Metro property.
Right.
No, I know, David, I was just saying that's probably what the assumption is being made based on that parking facility. Not that it was right, but that's what the assumption is.
Yeah, I'm not even sure, folks, it might be the intersection of 2 bus lines at Jefferson and Crenshaw, because the state.
That makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah, the state law didn't really say metro stops or train stops.
You're right. Yeah, AB 2097, because it was AB 2097 and TOC were different than the density bonus. Density bonus does explicitly say if it's a parking lot or garage or whatever that is operated by the transit agency, that also counts basically. And so that's what we were based on originally. But what I'm saying is, just in the time even since like this application was put together, this map was just updated like a month ago or something. And so now it seems to be like, I don't think that those bus lines qualify today. So that's why I'm not like totally up on it. But it seems like that they have an intention that those will be more frequent lines in the future, and they use that for their purposes. So.
Right. So we're going to have to conclude. It's 10 of 9.
Laura, can I say one thing quickly?
Yes.
For the areas that are around this building and all the others, you should consider applying for parking permits. It's a process. It takes a long time, and you are gonna look at no parking at all. So please take into consideration what Lamert Park did.
Right. Okay. So this is where I was going with what I was going to say. Obviously, we also recognize you're building this at a surface parking lot and above.
Mhm.
And I feel that the CPIO says underground is required, but I don't know. This was a feeling. And I understand the expense of that, and it might not help. It might help bring the building down, but it wouldn't help increase the parking, it might decrease parking. So that I think your take home in part is commercial parkings might be necessary. You know, the thing I brought up also about the ride share, how is that gonna be handled? Because that helps alleviate, especially for the commercial use. If it's a restaurant, won't help it if it's a furniture sales store.
Mhm.
Because it'd be a weed show.
Well, it won't help if it's, people don't wanna carry it. Okay, I'm just saying, what is the timeline for approvals? You know, is there, there's clearly a public hearing process involved with this.
Yeah, I mean, you all were very quick, because I think I just
Because
filed this like
urbanized-
less than 2 weeks ago.
No,
Yeah,
because it
yeah,
hit
yeah.
Urbanize and then it hit all the local social media
Yeah,
and I thought,
exactly,
okay,
yeah.
think we need a public discussion, but
Yeah,
what is the
yeah.
actual timeline of the planning department for you?
Well, so I mean, it really depends on when they schedule it, but I would say, I mean, typically it takes at least usually 6 months to get to your city planning commission hearing. So what are we in, just at so I mean,
Right.
that would be like towards like end of November, early December before it would have, usually though, they'll have like a hearing, and so that might be like 2
Correct.
months before. So that would be, say,
Well,
like
do you have an
October.
assigned planner yet?
Not yet, I mean,
Yeah.
it hasn't even gotten to that point yet.
And you
so-
did not file for expedite, this is just normal?
Yeah, they don't allow that for like CPIO
Okay.
cases.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have a little time.
So, just to understand, Gary, you and the owner and architect are coming to us
Mhm.
to get support for your project, correct? And you would like for us to provide a letter or have Laura speak at the City Planning Commission for us to support the project?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to be clear, I would have reached out probably,
No,
like a
I
little
just-
later.
I-
Yeah, but
okay,
generally
but I-
speaking, of course, we would love to get support. I know
No,
there's a lot of
I
points.
just want to make it
think-
clear
yeah.
that normally why developers come to us to ask for support,
Uh-huh.
and sometimes, many times we do give it, and sometimes we don't.
Mhm.
And just so you know, that as we go through the process, if we decide not to support it,
Mhm.
there will be many community members that will call in on the City Planning Commission.
Mhm.
There will be many, and if it gets to that, we'll call in to the Planning and Land Use to oppose the project. And we will also reach out to our council district, CD10. So I would just say that take to heart some of our comments,
Mhm.
give us some good feedback, and come back, try to work with the community. For the most part, we do support projects, but then sometimes we don't.
And we have worked very well with developers. It's just, so it just depends on how much is like, absolutely, you're not gonna change. Like I'm saying you, but, the owners, and what's flexible. Cause I'm not sure noise from the rooftop is gonna be easily, I mean, I go to a lot of local community land use kind of meetings. And I see, like, I go to North University Park Design Review Board, I go to lots of things, and you see almost all the time the rooftop gets eliminated because of the noise concerns, after hearing from the community. So, but that's an amenity for tenants, I mean, so it's a problem. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
that should be something that, at least mitigating the noise, how do you do that? Because it would be very noisy. I think the higher you are, the farther it travels.
I keep screening them.
Sure, well, one developer, I hope he did it, it's under construction now, ended up agreeing to put in water features. Not because it takes away the noise, but because it calms people down and they would be less noisy. No, seriously, they're gonna make it more zen up on top instead of party hardy.
But Laura, if they are going to eliminate, if that is a consideration to eliminate the rooftop, and they're already asking for a 20% reduction in common open space, that
No,
is, they are
I
counting that.
understand.
Yeah,
Everything is a
yeah.
push-pull, and also doing more transition and having your open deck at level 2, instead of having it inside, having it outside, because you're doing transition. I mean, in other words, to have the open thing in the middle of the building kind of gets rid of, you can see why, some of the transition height.
Yeah.
But then if you end up having a party deck on level 2 or 3, that's even noisier for the next door people. So, everything is kind of a push-pull.
Mhm.
So, anyway, we are really obligated to leave this building. But I appreciate that you came out everyone came out on short notice. And, again, I apologize halfway for the short notice, but the purpose was because it was already being discussed all over our local social media, and I thought it'd be better to hear, but they were always saying, was this many units? No, it's this many units. I mean, so we wanted the real answers.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Had a lot of, thank you all for your comments and feedback, certainly a lot to, digest and take
And some
back.
of those questions we could answer. Okay.
So,
Thank you very
So,
much.
everybody, I'm going to thank you, but I have to log off the Zoom meeting. I know, stop the YouTube first.